Hello, KSB students, families, and friends, and welcome to our second edition of Elementary KSB Reading Pawprints. On this episode, we will be reading a book titled Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark. This is a book about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a Supreme Court justice who recently passed away. Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark. Written by Debbie Levy. Illustrations by Elizabeth Baddeley. This book is available from the Louisville Free Public Library in ebook and print, on Bookshare, Learning Ally, and Bard. Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark. You could say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life has been one disagreement after another. Disagreement with creaky old ideas, with unfairness, with inequality. Ruth has disagreed, disapproved, and differed. She has objected. She has resisted. She has dissented. Disagreeable? No. Determined? Yes. This is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed her life and ours. So on this page, there's a picture of a little girl. She's wearing a blue coat, and she has her finger pointed in the air, and it looks like she's yelling. And then on the opposite page, there's a woman in a black robe with a white lace collar. She has her finger pointed in the air, just like the little girl, and she's also shouting. In 1940, Little Ruth's neighborhood was vibrant with immigrants, people from Italy, Ireland, England, Poland, and Germany, Jews from Russia like Ruth's father, Nathan Bader, people from different cultures with different holidays, foods, and traditions. But in all these families in Brooklyn, New York, and in families everywhere, one thing was the same. Boys were expected to grow up, go out in the world, and do big things. Girls? Girls were expected to find husbands. Ruth's mother disagreed. So in this picture, Ruth is in her blue coat and hat, and she's walking with her mother, who's in a black coat with pearl earrings and a pearl necklace and books in her hand. And they're walking down a street that has all sorts of shops, a shoe store and a bedding store and a toy store. Celia Amster Bader thought girls should also have the chance to make their mark on the world, so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, girl detective. She discovered Amelia Earhart, daring aviator. She learned of Athena, goddess of Greek myths. Here were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world. Around her, the sweet scent of books blended with savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Delicious! A girl could be anything. Here's a picture of Ruth. She's sitting on the floor in front of a bookshelf and has a book open in her lap. She's reading, and from the pages of the book are images of the three different women that they just described: Amelia Earhart, Nancy Drew, and Athena. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. As they drove past a hotel in Pennsylvania, Ruth saw a sign. The sign says, "No dogs or Jews allowed." This is how it was in those days. Hotels, restaurants, even entire neighborhoods announcing. And there's some more signs here. This one says, "No Jews, no colored, no Mexicans, whites only." And there's a car driving down the road, and Ruth is looking out the window, looking at all the signs. Ruth and her family were Jewish. This was prejudice, pure and simple. Now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. In elementary school, Ruth was excellent in some classes and less excellent in others. Her favorites were English, history, and gym. In those, she did well. But then there was handwriting. Ruth was left-handed. Back then, teachers told left-handers they should try to write with their right hands. Ruth's right-handed penmanship was so bad, she earned a D on her penmanship test. She cried. Then she protested. Ruth protested by writing with her left hand from that day forward, and it turned out she had quite nice handwriting. In this picture, there's an old black chalkboard, and on the chalkboard, there's 4 students, and they're writing their letters in cursive. They're practicing their cursive letter writing. And on the opposite page, Ruth is holding a piece of chalk in her hand and smiling at the reader. Ruth also had a little problem with sewing and cooking. These were her least favorite classes, but girls had to take them. Boys took shop where they worked with saws and other tools. Ruth objected. She wanted to take shop. She wanted to handle a saw. She didn't get what she wanted. It may have been unfair to girls and to boys, but Ruth was learning that sometimes life was like that. So in this picture, Ruth is standing with another female student. They're both wearing dresses and aprons, and they're holding cakes. Ruth's cake is half melted on one side, and the other student has a perfectly baked cake. In the background, you can see an oven with the door partially open. Ruth loved music. She especially loved opera. In music class, she lifted her voice in song. This time, it was Ruth's music teacher who objected, gently. Ruth simply could not carry a tune. The teacher asked Ruth not to sing out loud in the chorus. Ruth kept on singing, in the shower and in her dreams. She continued to adore opera, too. So in this picture, Ruth is wearing a gown with a rope belt and a hat, and she's singing very loudly. And there are 3 people in the background who have their ears covered because they don't want to hear Ruth sing. By the time Ruth was in high school, friends and teachers knew her as an outstanding student, baton twirler, cello player, and newspaper editor. As graduation approached, Ruth was chosen to make a speech at the ceremony, but she had been keeping a big secret. Her mother was terribly sick. The day before graduation, Celia Bader died. There was no agreeing with this. There was no disagreeing. This simply was. Ruth did not go to her graduation. She did not give her speech. Still, Ruth knew what her mother wanted. 3 months later, she left home to attend college. So in this picture, Ruth is on the couch with a tissue in her hand, and she's dabbing at her eyes, and she's sitting next to a man in a bowler hat and a vest and slacks, and he is looking down towards the ground with his hand, holding his hands together in front of him, and behind them in the window, you can see students in caps and gowns throwing their caps in the air as if they're at their graduation ceremony. Not many girls went to college in the 1950s. Ruth made friends, but she also met girls who excluded Jews from their clubs. She met boys who thought girls should be looking for husbands. And then she met Martin Ginsburg. Marty was tall and funny. Ruth was small and serious. Marty could make her laugh. They fell in love and hatched a plan. After college, they would go to law school, both of them. Lawyers, Ruth had learned, could fight unfairness and prejudice in courts. People thought it was a fine idea for Marty to attend law school. They didn't think Ruth should go. A lady lawyer? People disapproved. Ruth disapproved right back. So did Marty. So in this picture, Up at the top left corner, there's a picture of their university with some trees with fall leaves on it. And then there's a picture of a path coming away from that. And Marty is standing in front of Ruth with a bouquet of flowers hidden behind his back. And in the very bottom, there's a picture of Ruth and Marty sitting on a blanket. And it appears that they might be studying. Ruth has a book on her lap open, and Marty has a stack of books next to him on the ground. They got married, they went to law school, and they had a baby, Jane. So in this picture, there's a picture of Marty holding the baby next to the crib, and Ruth is sitting in a rocking chair with a notebook on her lap writing and a stack of law books on the floor next to some baby toys. Ruth's law school class had a total of 9 women and 500 men. She studied mightily and tied for first place in the class, and yet at graduation time, no one would hire this brilliant new lawyer. Why not? She was a woman. Men didn't want to work with a woman. She was a mother. Men thought a mother wouldn't pay attention to work. She was Jewish. Many people were still prejudiced. 3 strikes against her, but Ruth was not out. She resisted and persisted. Finally, a judge hired her, and she worked like mad for him. After that, one law school hired her, and then another. Ruth became one of the few female law professors in the whole country, and she did it with a new baby at home, James. So in this picture, there are many people sitting in an auditorium together. They're all wearing suits. They're all men, except in the very front is Ruth wearing a sweater with a white collar, a blue sweater with a white collar, and everyone else in this picture is wearing a black suit, all of the men. Ruth had disagreed and worked her way into being a lawyer and professor, but around her, other women were excluded from jobs. When they did get jobs, they earned less than men. They were kept out of important roles in courts and government. To make matters worse, the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, approved all of this. As one Supreme Court justice had written years before, the natural and proper timidity and delicacy which belongs to the female sex evidently unfits it for many of the occupations of civil life. In other words, women and girls were too shy and weak to do big things in the world. Another Supreme Court opinion declared, woman has always been dependent upon man. Ruth really, really disagreed with this. On this page, there are pictures of the 2 Supreme Court justice men who made those quotes, and on the page next to it is a picture of Ruth, and her eyebrow is raised. She has a frown. She looks very unhappy. So Ruth went to court to fight for equal treatment of women. The most important cases went to the Supreme Court. The first time she appeared there, Ruth was so nervous she feared she might be sick. But standing before the 9 Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. She, Professor Ginsburg, needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choices shouldn't be limited just because she was born a girl. In this picture, there's an audience full of men. There's 9 of them, and their heads are very large, and it looks like they're facing a stage. There's a red curtain, and on that stage is a small Ruth Bader Ginsburg speaking to the crowd. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home to take care of his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't his wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in the 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. With each victory, women and men and girls and boys enjoyed a little more equality. Sometimes Ruth and Marty's children received confused looks when they said that their mother argued cases in the Supreme Court and their father made the family's dinners. People found this strange. Ruth, Marty, Jane, and James did not concur. They kept on being the type of family they wanted to be, and dinners at the Ginsburg home were delicious. Marty was a successful lawyer, but also a marvelous chef who had mastered the art of French cooking. Ruth, her family knew, had mastered the art of burnt pot roast. So in this picture, the Bader Ginsburg family is gathered around the kitchen table. The children are there, and Ruth is there, and Marty is bringing a turkey to the table. Everyone is smiling and happy, and they look like they're about to eat a meal together. Ruth became well known as a lawyer, so well known that President Jimmy Carter chose her to be a judge in Washington, D.C. Then Ruth became known as a first-rate judge, and President Bill Clinton asked her to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Along with the 8 other Supreme Court justices, her job would be to decide the most significant cases and answer the most difficult legal questions in the United States. Ruth agreed. In 1993, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first Jewish woman on the nation's highest court. So in this picture, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has her hand on the Bible, and she is being sworn in as a Supreme Court justice. In each case, the Supreme Court considers, after hearing from lawyers who argue for each side, the 9 justices take a vote. The side that gets the most votes wins the case. The justices who agree write an opinion to explain the court's ruling. When Justice Ginsburg votes with the winning side, she wears a special lace collar over her robe. But many times, when the Supreme Court announces the decision, Justice Ginsburg disagrees. "I dissent," she says, and she writes her own opinion explaining why. Plus, she wears a different collar, just for dissenting. So on the right-hand page, or the left-hand page rather, Ruth is wearing one of her collars. And on the opposite page, Ruth is wearing her dissent collar. She has a word bubble coming out of her mouth that says the words, "I dissent." "I dissent," Justice Ginsburg said when the court wouldn't help women or African Americans or immigrants who had been treated unfairly at work. "I dissent when the court rejected a law meant to protect the right of all citizens to vote, no matter their skin color. "I dissent when the court said no to schools that offered African Americans a better chance to go to college." Justice Ginsburg can be very convincing. In one dissent, she explained why the court was wrong to rule against women workers who were fighting to get paid the same as men. Congress and the president agreed with her and passed a law to undo the court's ruling. In this picture, there are different citizens, women, and people of color, and Justice Ginsburg is at the front of this group of people with her gavel in her hand, and they all are smiling and happy as they are working to gain equality. Justice Ginsburg has disagreed most often with the legal views of Justice Antonin Scalia, but they didn't just complain. "I dissent." "No, I dissent." They shared their conflicting ideas. Each pointed out weaknesses in the other's arguments, and after the opinions were written, the 2 justices had fun with each other. They didn't let disagreements about law get in the way of a long friendship. So on this page, there's a picture of Justice Scalia and Justice Bader Ginsburg in their Supreme Court robes, and they're facing each other, and they are arguing. And then on the opposite page, there's a picture of Justice Ginsburg and Justice Scalia parasailing in France and riding an elephant in India. Justice Ginsburg is now the oldest member of the Supreme Court. Some people have said she should quit because of her age. Justice Ginsburg begs to differ. She works as hard as ever. She exercises in the gym. She never misses a day in court. She attends the opera, gives speeches, and travels. Many have cheered Justice Ginsburg for her persistence and independence. They have called her a rock star, a queen, a goddess, a hero. Of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't a rock star, a queen, or a goddess, but to many, she is a hero. She made change happen, and she changed minds. She cleared a path for people to follow in her footsteps, girls in college, women in law school, and everyone who wants to be treated without prejudice. Her voice may not carry a tune, but it sings out for equality. Step by step, she has made a difference, one disagreement after another. In this picture, Justice Ginsburg is standing in front of the court, and she's holding in her hands the scales of justice. And that is the end of this book. A quote is on the back of the book, and the quote says, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." So this book was written before Justice Ginsburg passed away, which happened on Friday, September the 18th, 2020. And many people have taken flowers and candles to the stairs of the Supreme Court to mourn her death. So we hope that students are inspired by Ruth Bader Ginsburg's story to grow up and become Supreme Court justices themselves, or to do another job that someone tells you that you can't do because of some reason, like your gender or your race or your visual impairment. So this book is available through the Louisville Free Public Library, an ebook and print. It's also available on Bookshare, Learning Ally, and Bard. We hope that you'll join us for our next Reading Pawprints episode, which will be a middle school book in the coming days. Thanks for watching. This video features the song Bubblegum Ballgame by J.R. Tundra, available under a Creative Commons license. This video was created by KSB Short Course Program Kirsten Price, protected under a Creative Commons license.